What's going on, everybody? It's Omar Almodovar here with Elite Recruits. In today's video, I'm sitting down with one of our former players to talk about his recruiting journey, his experience in the program, and what he's learned going through the recruiting process to pass along for guys that are about to go into their own recruiting process. So take it away, CJ. Tell them your name, where you're from, what position you play, and a little bit of your background when we first connected to now.
Yeah, I'm CJ Byrdak. I'm a right-handed pitcher. I'm committed to Grandview University up in Iowa. Beforehand, went to school. I wasn't too sure I was gonna, just produce in the classroom. Wasn't getting all that stuff. Was told I was getting stuff that didn't happen. So just hit up the Boca Beach Boys and ended up talking to Omar, and just got talking and what are the plans for next year? And I told him I'm looking for a school, and he told me about Elite Recruits. So, I just talked to my parents, and here we are, committed to Grandview next year.
For sure.
Um, definitely something that was in my best interest. Not playing this spring, getting a spot for summer ball, and just get a spot that can go and compete and get looked at, and how to get looks and what to do when you're communicating with coaches, and when you're getting all those different text messages and emails all a bunch at a time. Just how to go through that, and just how to keep everything straight and narrow. So
100%. So yeah, to give guys a little bit more background at home, we connected. So you pitched at the junior college level. You came down to a school here in Florida. When you got to the school, things weren't what you were expecting. So you decided to not pitch that spring, and you were looking for a school for the following year. And then I have a team, the Boca Beach Boys. Obviously, I like the shirt right there. And you decided to pitch with us this summer, but as well as working with me one on one throughout your recruiting process. So to give everybody a little bit of background at home. So let's take it back a little bit, right? Once we first connected, what was going on with your recruiting process at the time? Because it was already the spring. And like, what do you feel like you were struggling with the most at that point?
honestly, I felt like I was stuck. I didn't really have many schools I was talking to. Didn't really know how to reach out to different schools, if it was a mass email, if it was a one-on-one email, how to structure that email or text message, depending on what it was. But just being able to get out there and just, how to post yourself, how to get yourself looks, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok nowadays, like everybody's watching. And that's the biggest thing that you taught me is, it's a grind, 100%. It's a grind, but if you're willing to put in the work, get videos, and take that extra step of here's my stuff and here's how I'm improving throughout the spring, and just being able to talk to you and go through the process of how to communicate with coaches and how to just deal with everything all at once. It was a lot easier, doing it with somebody who's been through the process before, who's seen my situation and multiple other situations, somebody who can get me in contact with coaches. That was the biggest thing I was lacking. I didn't know how to do that. And you really helped me do that. So
For sure. And for you, yeah, it was a, different situation than most guys, right? But everybody's recruiting process is a little bit different. You're in the spring, trying to figure out where you were going to pitch the next year, if you were going to be able to pitch, and also, what should I be doing development wise right now? Because obviously not having a lot of people to train with and throw and also working. I think the biggest thing for you was understanding the balance between, hey, I'm not pitching this spring. It doesn't mean that I have to find a school right now, but it also doesn't mean that I'm going to wait until the summer to then start, right? We already started posting videos out there during the spring to start getting your name out there in front of coaches, build that up. And then once you got on the mound in the summer, then everything happened pretty quickly after that. So once we got started, we talked about your goals and putting together a game plan to help you achieve those, right? So talk a little bit about for you how important it was to have a structured game plan and guidance instead of just trying to figure everything out on your own.
like you said, it was the freshman year and sophomore year. I had both of those minimal innings. But just being able to get back in the weight room, I felt like I was stuck. I didn't really know what to do. At the time, I really thought I was done with baseball. That's kind of where my head was at, and I didn't know how to get out of that. But, I went down to Miami, worked with your guy, pitching wise, and then just getting in the weight room, just getting back to being myself, and understanding that baseball it's not just a game anymore. It's it's more of a job. You got to look at it as a job in college, and that's how I went at it. It's something you got to work towards every day, in and out. So posting the videos in the spring, we got out there early, so I really wasn't 100%. And then as soon as the summer came, when the coaches are actually looking, there I am 100%. They're seeing everything I got. So
Sure. And I think it's a good point that you brought up, right? Where, obviously people look at this as, and it's a recruiting, program, but at the end of the day, like it goes further than that, right? Because you during the spring, you don't really have any teammates around because you're on your own. You're not part of the team. But for you, nobody else is really going to tell you, hey, you have to throw today, you have to do those things. But we were still able to be in contact. And I was, I'm not going to babysit you because you're a grown man, but checking in with you, like, hey, are you throwing a bullpen this week? What's going on with your training program? Are you going to be 100% by the time the summer starts and coaches want to see you? So, that all goes hand in hand at the end of the day. So when it comes to recruiting wise, let's talk a little bit, about results, right? What actually happened for you, once we started posting videos, started reaching out to coaches, and, like what changed with the attention you were getting from coaches before we started and then once we started?
yeah, like I said, I really wasn't talking to anybody before I met you. It was very little coaches knew I was, still looking for a home for next year and that I wasn't going to pitch this spring, so I'm saving eligibility. But the biggest thing for me was, just posting that first video and just seeing the amount of coaches that are just interacting with it, just following you, not even shooting you a message, but just saying, "Hey, I'm here." And I think that was a big thing for me was just being able to get those videos. Throw into a 9 pack or even just a catcher. It doesn't even have to be a catcher, man. Just somebody you can throw to. But just being able to let the coaches see the difference between pitches, as a pitcher and just the mechanics. I think that was the biggest thing is I really wasn't 100% in the spring. And then as soon as I was able to post in the summer at 100%, they were seeing what the velocity was at, how my body's moving at 100%, and how different it all is. So.
Yeah, 100%. So a lot of players watching this, right? They might wonder what it's actually like inside my program. How would you describe, the communication, the support, and your overall experience?
My overall experience was phenomenal. I loved every second of it. Meeting you and the other guys. That was awesome. Being able to be in person was an even bigger A plus. I loved every part of it. Um, but just it's so well structured. You're never gonna sit there and you're always available. I think that was the biggest thing for me is I didn't know how to respond to different coaches or when you're turning down a scholarship opportunity that you're not really not looking for, what to say during those texts and just being able to just say, "Hey, Omar, here's a screenshot, bam, what do I say, man?" And you just give us a little bit of structure and just say, here's basically what I would say, and you can go off of that. You can say exactly that. That was a huge thing for me. But the Excel sheet, I think that was even what helped me even more was just being able to say, here are my top schools, and let's go after the big ones and let's eat. Everything was well structured, and I loved every part of it.
Sweet. And it's funny because you brought up, that getting in person, right? It didn't start that way, right? Fortunate enough, because of summer ball, we are able to meet in person and get connected and work in person. But it didn't start that way, right? So a question for you, when we first connected, right, with you and your family on the Zoom call, were you unsure about, working with somebody online that you had never met before or paying for recruiting help? And, like what ultimately changed your mind?
Honestly, what ultimately changed my mind was just being able to talk to you before anything. We hopped on a Zoom call before there was a payment or this or that or anything. It was, here's me. Here, I'm going to present myself to you. Here's what I'm about.
Mhm.
And being able to sit here and say, this is what I've done for other players. Now let's see what I can do for you. That's what I really took because you take it and you make it personal to every player.
Yeah.
It's not just okay, here, I'm going to get you to a school. You're actually sitting there emailing schools and posting and reposting and helping everybody in every way you can. And it's all the guys in elite recruits. I know Jared, I believe he works with you as well, correct?
Mhm.
He was wonderful during this summer. He's a pitching coach for the Boca Beach Boys this past summer. But just being able to throw bullpens in front of him. He was able to sit there and help me with different stuff that I really didn't understand myself. You guys have done great work in the past. You guys are straight up about everything you guys want to be and who you guys are. You guys are very, very nice guys. You guys take care of us very well, and I really do appreciate it. So,
100%. I appreciate you trusting me, man. I know we met over the internet. I still remember our call. This is how much attention to detail I put. Is it was you. Your mom was in an office. Your dad was at a pitching facility giving a lesson. And even through all the craziness, like we connected right away. So I still remember that vividly. So if somebody's watching this right now, and they're going through the recruiting process, they know they need help, but they're still on the fence about working with me. What would you tell them?
I would tell them to just hop on that Zoom call, learn what you're about, give you a shot to explain yourself and just take a deeper look into elite recruits and the amount of guys that you've put into great positions and, the guys you've taken care of. I mean, just look at the Boca Beach Boys, for example, how many of us, you took care of us all the time. Um, Omar, you like, I don't know, like,
I appreciate it. Nah,
I don't know, man. Like I just gotta say, like, you guys are always yourself. You guys don't bullshit anybody. You're gonna give it straight up. And that's how I expected it. That's how I want it. It's very transparent, and I think that's something that's huge at the college level because a lot of guys get their chains pulled nowadays, and it sucks to say it, but college baseball, like I said, it's a job. You need as much help as you possibly can. So whether you're not in the portal or looking to get in the portal, look into elite recruits, look into Omar, look what they've done in the past and hop on that phone call with them and just get to meet Omar because he's a great guy and he'll always be there for you no matter what.
yes, sir. No, it's funny, yeah, because we grew like a lot of the guys that I work with. Sometimes I don't really get to meet them in person. Obviously, it's all remote through social media, and thankfully, with the power of social media, guys can get such good results. But our situation was special because it didn't start that way, right? We started off on social media. We didn't meet each other, but then in the summer, once we got to meet each other, like that relationship grew, and like family now. Really, that's the only thing I
Yeah,
can say. So,
100%.
now you're headed off to Grandview, hopefully throw a ton of innings, win a championship. If there's anybody watching this now and going through the recruiting process, what's the biggest piece of advice that you could give them?
Be yourself. A lot of college coaches, you're gonna get on the phone and you're gonna say what they want to hear. Um, don't say what you want, like what they want to hear. Just be true to yourself. Trust what you want.
A lot of guys, they'll try to say the perfect thing, exactly like what the coach wants to hear. But if you paint a picture of yourself to make that coach like you, well, once you get there on campus and you are yourself and it doesn't click, then all of that was for nothing. You rather get told no by being yourself, but not going to a situation where you don't fit in and finding the place that wants you for who you are. And then that actually ends up working out. So I think that that's a really good piece of advice. And it's pretty simple, right? A lot of things with recruiting could get overcomplicated when it doesn't have to be. So now that you're headed off to school, where can guys find you on social media if they ever need to reach out for advice or they just want to follow along with your journey?
Yeah, on Instagram at cj.burdak. And on Twitter, I believe it's cj burdak. No,
Short
nothing
and simple.
special. Yeah.
Byrdak with a Y. So yeah, that's all I got for you, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Obviously, it was great being with you all summer. Not gonna get to see you for a while, but hopefully down the line again. But I'll definitely be following along this year.
Sounds good, Omar. Appreciate everything, man. I'll be back.
Yes, sir. We will.